Hi, Darren Lyle here. Well, today I'd like to work on this gas pump, and in doing so, we'll go through all the modeling, we'll add materials, we'll do some UV mapping so we can add textures to it, and ultimately we'll add some lights and render out a final image. So join me, and let's create with Blender 2.8. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is bring in a couple of reference images just so I can have them in view as I work here. So maybe I'll split a window here. Now let's create an image editor here, and let's create an image editor here. And we'll go ahead and open a couple of images just to help us while we're working here. I'm going to click on this icon right here, and here's the one I want to use mainly. So I'm going to press Control Spacebar to increase that or make that full screen. So I was at the gas station the other day and I just pulled out my phone and took a picture of this. I think this looks pretty good. I've got a couple of other images that are a little bit closer up. I'll press Control Space to go back to there, and let's bring one into here. I'm not sure which one I want. Let's take a look. How about, I've got a couple of close-ups here. I think I'm actually going to use a texture for this close-up, but let's go ahead and bring this in. Here we go. So this is what we have here. So I think what I'll probably do is, this is a little bit cut off here. I think I may have another one, but I think I'm going to take this out, cut this out right here, and take it into Krita and use that as a texture, instead of trying to model every little piece. I mean, I could model these, I suppose, and then just cut out this up here and use that as a texture. But I like all this torn, faded things here as well. So let's see how it works. All right, so let's Control Space to go back, and let's begin on this. So it looks like we're going to be dealing with a whole lot of cubes here. So I'm just going to select everything and hit X and delete. And let's just bring in a cube with Shift A. And yeah, so I'm going to try and have the positive X here, right here, on the right, and the positive Z going back. So, excuse me, the positive Y going back and the Z going up. So let's just press S and Y and kind of scale in. And I will move it up. I'm going to click on this icon right here to get that move gizmo. And maybe I'll tab into edit mode, press the 3 key to go to face mode, and then select that one face there. Go to the move tool and kind of bring it up a little bit. So I'm just working on the blue part here. Let's try and see if we can get it generally the right size. And I'll hit the 3 key and the 5 key to kind of see it from the side. Down here we've got a piece down here that's a little bit different. I may make that a separate object. And for the sides here, I guess that's just another cube. What I could do is just duplicate this, Shift D, and hit the X key to slide that out like that, and then press S and X, and then scale it in, and that will just ensure that it's the right depth there. So we can bring that right into here. It looks a little bit narrow. Maybe I'll bring it out just a bit like that. And then grab this guy, and let's just bring that straight up like this. Okay, so we've got that generally in place. Okay. I feel like it needs to be a little bit taller, maybe. Something like this. I don't know. We'll continue adjusting as we go, I'm sure. So I'm going to press Shift D and X and move it to the other side. I'll hit the 7 key and the 5 key to go to the top orthographic view. And I'll just place these right next to that cube right in the center. Okay, we've got that. Let's put this black piece on down here. It looks like these are kind of angled or something. I'm not really sure what's going on down there, but let's just take this, duplicate it again, Shift D and Enter, and then I'm just going to scale it in the Z, S and Z, and scale it down quite a bit. And then I'll just go to the side view here, and let's just drag it down kind of in here like this and get it in place. And then I feel like, although I'm not sure, I feel like there's a little bit of an angle down here. I don't know. Do you see that right there? It feels like there's kind of an angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece and this piece, and I'm going to combine them together into one object. So I'll press Control J. And now if I tab into edit mode, you can see they're both in edit mode. Now I can grab this edge. I'll hit the 2 key to go to edge mode, and this edge, and I want to bring them up just a little bit. It just feels like they're up just a little bit like that. And then it also feels like it goes down to the black part. So let's go to face mode and grab this one and that one, and let's bring these down a bit like this. Maybe something like this. It's hard to tell, but we'll kind of do it the way we think it should be done. And then it also looks like this part angles as well. So we could take this face and this face and then scale them in the Y, so S and Y. And I'm going to hold the Shift key down just to move kind of slowly and move those in just a bit like that. Yeah, so we've got those kind of angled in now. Okay, that's good. Now, what else can we do here? Well, we're going to need to work on this piece, that's for sure. But I think what I'm going to do is let's add these pieces in here. I'm going to press Control Spacebar again. And it looks like we've got this kind of rounded piece here and an indentation up here. So let's go ahead and do the indentation. In fact, maybe we'll do 2, and then we'll just kind of add a cylinder in here. It's broken there or has a space, but I don't think I really care. Well, over here and over here, well, okay, maybe we should put those in. So let's go ahead and do the indentation up here first, Control Space. And so let's see about how, I'm kind of eyeballing everything currently, so let's press Control R and click, and let's drag up, and I'm kind of feeling like it's like this right here. I don't know, maybe too much there. Let's try that. Okay. And then I'll press Control R, and let's add another one right here. And the thing I don't know is, yeah, it looks like it angles in here. So that's actually a cut. So to handle that, let me try something a little bit different. So I'm not going to try and cut in. I'm going to try and extrude out. So instead of trying to select this and then extrude it in and then deleting faces on either side, let me show you what I'm going to do. Let me grab this, and I'm going to create that other indentation there where that cylinder is going to go right here, let's say. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to face mode. I'm going to select all of these faces here, and I'm going to bring them back. So just like this. There we go. Then I'm going to take everything that isn't cut in, like that, and extrude them out. So I'll just hit E and pull them straight out like that. There we go. So now we have those pulled out, or these parts cut in. It's just sometimes easier to extrude things out than to try and cut them in. So anytime you see something that you need to cut in, think if you can actually do the opposite and extrude out. All right, so now that we've got that, let's also get this cylinder in here. So what I'll do with this is just select that face and press Shift S, cursor to selected. Now let's just create a cylinder right at that cursor. So Shift A, cylinder. It's got probably 32 sides, yeah. It's got a cat fill as an n-gon. Let's change that to triangle fan. And then let's rotate it around the y-axis, RY90. There we go. Scale in. And now we've got this in here. What's it look like? So it looks like it's a little bit smaller. Okay. Something like this maybe? Let's see. You know, it's kind of hard to see in here. What I'm going to do is come up to shading, and I'm going to change my material here. Actually, instead of changing, I'm just going to turn on cavity. Let's see how that works. That helps a little bit, so I can kind of see inside there. So let's bring that in just a bit and bring that like this. Okay. Now what let's do is go ahead and just scale this out. Really, though, what I should do before I scale this out, is go ahead and duplicate it. Shift D, X, and I'm going to slide it over here. And now I will create that piece right here with the kind of a gap in it. So SX, let's scale that out. Tell us about there. Is that enough? Oops, let me do a little bit more. S and X and scale that out. And then pop that right there. All right, and then let's go ahead and do that on the other side. I'll just duplicate an X and then bring that over here like this. There we go. And then, let me see if this is too close. I'm just hitting the period key to zoom into the selected object. Now if I take this and I just scale it out on the X, we should be able to get it out about like that and have kind of a gap there. All right, that'll work. Now, as I said, all of this stuff up here, all of this and all of this may just be textures, although I feel like I want to do these. I don't know why. I feel like I want to do these and have all this be a texture. I don't want to deal with all of this, you know, all of this stuff. I'm okay with the reflections in there. Well, if I actually model these, then I'll have to cut out each individual piece here as a texture and UV map it and put it on there. So I think I'll go with a texture. Let's at least try it first before we do any of the modeling there. But I will need this down here. So let's take a look at this. Clearly we're going to need a cube, right? Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to bring the cursor back to the center of the grid with Shift S and cursor to world origin. And then I'll press Shift A and let's bring in a cube. I will scale this down quite a bit. And let's bring it out and maybe scale it in the Z here. I'm going to bring it up and try and put it in place and get it about the right size. And then I'll work on this angled part. I don't want to do that until it's in place. So let's kind of let's see where it's going to go. All right, so now let's go ahead and insert an edge loop. It looks like the bend is just a little bit higher than the center, right? Then what let's do is take this one edge and let's just bring it straight out like this. Okay, so there's that. Then what let's do is grab these faces and actually before I do anything, I'm going to come back over here and reapply the scale because the scale is non-uniform and I want to be sure that it's all uniform before I do any extruding here. I'm going to press Control A and apply the scale. Okay, so now those are all ones there. Then what I'm going to do is take these faces here and I will press I for inset. And let's bring these in like this. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to extrude straight back. So I'll hit E and I'll click and then I'm going to drag in the Y and bring that straight back like that. So we could go all the way in, but I think I'm going to just go to there. So now I want to get some of these curves in here. I like these curves on the corners. So let's just press the division key on the numpad and isolate that. Well, now we've got these things. I wonder why these things didn't isolate. That's interesting. I'm going to select those and press the H key to hide them because I don't want them in the view right now. All right, so for this, let's, I could use the Subdivision Surface Modifier, but I think I'm just going to use the Bevel tool. Let's see how that works. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and select these edges right along here, like this. And my scale should still be, well, it is fairly uniform. I'm going to go ahead and press Control A and scale it again and hit and apply the scale again. So with those edges selected now, I'll press Control B and I'll click and drag, or I'll just drag the mouse out just a bit like this. And then I'll increase the number of segments. Maybe I'll go ahead and add 4. Let's try that. Okay, so we got that rounded part there. Let's go ahead and do that on the inside as well while we have that in the tool. So with that, I'll press Control B and click and drag, and now we've got 4 in there as well, already there in the settings. Okay, so we've done that. Let's also get this edge around the outside along here. I'm just going to press Alt and click there, and then Alt and Shift and click there. Let's see if we can add just a tiny little bevel here. I'll press Control B and hold the Shift key down and just pull out just a little bit. I don't think I need 4 segments there, maybe down to 3. Let's try that. All right, that's not too bad. Let's go ahead and bring everything back with the Division key, and oh, I hid those things, so I'll press Alt H to unhide everything. There we go. Okay, so now I guess we need that sign up there, and we also need the top up here, and then we can work on the actual pump, the handle itself, and the cable, or excuse me, the tube, the piping that goes to the handle. All right, so let's just work on this sign. I don't know what I'm going to put on the sign yet. I guess I could do the exact same thing, now hiring awesome people, but I don't really know what I want to do with that quite yet. So I'm going to bring the cursor to the selected, and then I'm going to press Shift A and create a cube. Let's scale it down, and let's scale it in the Y, S and Y, S and X, like that. All right, let's try that. And then what I'm going to do is just select this face and this face, and let's press I and see what happens. Let's inset like this. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and apply this scale again, Control A and scale, so that when I do this, it's uniform. There we go, it's a little more uniform now. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is extrude, hit Enter, and then press S and Y and scale in like this. Let me see how far apart they are. I'll go to a wireframe with the Z key, and let's see how far apart they are. Oh yeah, we could go in quite a bit more. S and Y, scale those in like that. Okay, so that Z key again, and now we could come in and do a little bit of beveling on this as well. So in the same way, let's go ahead and apply the scale one more time, and in the same way I'm going to grab these edges on the corners and do a little beveling here. Control B, and let's, oh, a little bit too much there. There we go, let's do that. Could probably do the outside with Alt click and the inside with Alt Shift click. Oh, why don't I do those insides again, just like I did before. Let's go ahead and get those just to make it uniform in there. Control B and drag that out just a little. Okay, yep, and then let's go ahead and bevel these. And let's go do, oh, I need to do this side as well. I mean, I probably don't. I think we're only going to see this ever from one side. But, and if we do see it from the other side, I can just spin it around. But let's go ahead and do it. Control B. There we go. Okay, so now let's grab this edge, that edge. This edge, that edge. Once again with Alt Shift click. Control B. Hold the Shift key down to move slower, and let's just do this. Let's try that. How'd we do? Okay. We did okay. All right, so that's good enough for that, I think. Lastly, what let's do is this top up here, and then we can work on the pump and the tube. So up here, we need this thing right there. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab this little guy down here, and let's just duplicate with Shift D and bring this up, just so I know it's the right width. I'm going to bring it up to here. I feel like it needs to be a little bit higher now that we have all this other stuff in place. Maybe like this. It's It's hard to tell. I'm going to select this and let's grab these two faces and bring them up like that. Okay. So now let's grab this. I'll grab that face. I'll bring it up to the top. Looks like we have some caps. Oh, a cap all the way around. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, we can do that. What let's do is take this face, maybe bring it up just a smidge, and then I'm going to extrude it down like this, and then bring it in the Y, S and Y, like that. There we go. I think that works. Okay. And then what we should do is, as I said, add that cap thing. I kind of like that. It kind of cleans it off, or finishes it off, I should say. So what let's think about how we can do that. I guess what I need to do is, oh, I know what we can do. Let's take this and let's duplicate it. Shift D, Enter. I'm going to bring it up, and now we've got our own piece right here. Now let's split this out as its own object. So I'll press the P key and choose Selection. Now that's its own piece. So if I select that, that is its own object now. I want to bring that origin into the center of this new object. So let's go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry. Then I'll press the 7 key, and let's go to Wireframe here. And I'll press S and X and scale this out so it's just a little bit bigger than the width of it. And maybe I'll press S and Y and scale that out so it's just a little bit bigger. And then we need to take these edges over here, this, and kind of scale them in. I don't know if you can see. We need this angle here. So what I should have done was extrude instead of just pull these out, but we can add an edge right here. So I'm going to add an edge right there, and I'm going to add an edge right in here as well, right there. Now if we select this edge and scale in the Y, SY, now if I bring that in like this, okay, there's that. Now, let's go back to solid view. If we take this thing, I'll move it down. And what we could do is we could actually, well, we could extrude, or we could use the solidify modifier. Why don't we do that? So once again, I'm going to press Shift A and, no, excuse me, Control A and apply the scale. Then I'm going to come down here to the modifiers panel right here, and we're going to add a new modifier, and let's go to solidify. So now what I can do is down here I can click this thickness. Well, first of all, let me click even thickness, and now if I click and drag in the thickness field, you can see I can make this thicker, and we can kind of bring this down over this like that, right? Now what I'd like to do, well, you know, I think that looks pretty good actually. I was going to take away that top, because what you can do is you can choose only rim, and that will leave the bottom open, which is kind of nice too actually. That's not bad. If I turn it off and back on, I don't know, I kind of like it without it. So let's go ahead and just go with that. So I think we're ready to work on the pump now, this handle here. Let's bring in another image. I don't want that one right now. I've got an image here. Let's work with this one, and let me make that full screen. And so there I am holding the gas pump there. But I think this is pretty basic. I'm not going to need a whole lot of detail for this because, once again, it's not going to be all that close up. I think the way I'd begin this maybe is with a cube to create this part here, and then we can extrude back here and here, and then maybe I can put a cylinder here and extend this out like that. So let's give this a try and see what we can do. I'm going to make this smaller again, and let's go to a whole new layer, or I should say collection, to do this. Let me organize the outliner a little bit better here. As we've been creating objects, they've been put into this default collection, and we could call this gas pump. We could just call that what it is. And in here now, we've got all these pieces, right? Actually, let me go ahead and close this for now. Let me join this to here so we can open that up a bit. What I'll do is create a new object outside of this collection. So if I hide this here, it will hide all the objects underneath that collection. But if I come back up here, and let's create an object here, mesh cube, now it puts it outside of that scene collection. So we can work on it as if it's on a new layer. And that's really all these are. In fact, you know what let's do is let's put this object or this image in an image plane behind here so we can kind of match up the size and the proportions to it as we model. Yeah, let's do that. So what I'm going to do is create an empty. I'm going to press Shift A, and instead of going to mesh, I'm going to come down here and go to empty, and I'm going to come way down here to image. And I'll click that, and here it is. Here's our empty image right here. I'm going to just drag it out right there. So this is just an empty that we can put an image in. And if we come over here to our properties panel down here and click on the empty tab right here, or the object data tab for the empty, we can bring in a new image. So if I click open, let's go find that reference image that I was just looking at here, and let's open that. And there it is. You can see it there. We can, of course, scale this up if we want. And we can also turn it. I'll press RX90 and turn it. And there we go. So now we have our image in the background here that we can use as we model it. And if I hit the 1 key and the 5 key, there we go. So I'll hit the Z key and go to wireframe. And now we can work and kind of build the model to the image. I'm going to go ahead and just turn this a bit, scale it, and I'm just going to line up this side right here, right over here. There we go. And then what I'll do is tab into edit mode, go to vertex mode with the 1 key, and I'll just border select these points here. You can see them here. I'll just zoom in. You can see I've selected those two. And I'll just move these down to here. And maybe I'll border select these and move these over to here like this. And I'll go ahead and add an edge loop with Control R and kind of put that right there. I'll grab these vertices and I'll move these down to about right there. So we've got just that basic outline. Now it looks like it dips down a bit, so we could add a couple of edge loops to simulate that. So maybe we add an edge loop here, and maybe we could grab these points and move them over here. And then we add a new edge loop in here, let's say, like this, and then grab these and bring these down like this. So yeah, something like this. Maybe I'll do one more like here. Now we can kind of pull this up. I keep hitting that B key. There we go. We can kind of pull that down like that. Okay, so let's go back to solid mode with the Z key, and then I'll scale in the Y a bit, and maybe that's about how wide our gas pump would be, maybe. All right, then up here, I'm going to need probably an edge loop right down the center, so I'll just add that there. Now, let's think about this stuff down here. Maybe I could just continue extruding and get these pieces down here. Well, it really looks like I need another extrusion down here at the bottom. I'm going to hit the 3 key and select these down here. And then I'll extrude out. Let's hit E. And I'll just hit the G key and pull out about like this. And now it looks like what we could do is go ahead and grab these things down here and begin pulling these down. So let's do that. Let's just grab these, pull these straight down like this. Kind of like this. And I'm just going to kind of flatten all of these up here. There we go. And I'll kind of put this one at an angle like that. There we go. All right, let's take a look at that. Okay, so now we've got some geometry that we can use to extrude out. So maybe I'll grab this stuff here. And then let's begin extruding this out. So if I hit E and pull out, and maybe I'll go back to wireframe here. And let's just kind of, maybe I'll scale in the X, S and X. And then rotate back. Yeah, let's put this right in here. I'll extrude on back down to here. So let's hit E, and then I'm going to hit G and pull on down to here. I'll hit S and Z to flatten that up some. And down here we could probably go ahead and turn it a bit and move it on down here. So it's still pretty rough, but that's okay. We're going to move this around a bit. I could maybe insert an edge loop here and then take these points here and move them in like this. And that means I should probably take these points here and move these in as well. All right, there we go. Now, let's get this here. We should maybe insert an edge loop right about here, let's say. And then with that, we can go ahead and grab those faces here. And let's begin extruding these down. So I'm going to extrude just a tad. Bring this down to about here. And then let's grab these right here and move those in. There we go. And then back to face mode, I'll border select these faces right there. And let's extrude on down like this. Turn that just a bit. And then we can insert an edge loop here. And maybe insert an edge loop right down here. And then we want to connect these up. So let's see how they look. What did I do here? Well, we've got the proper amount of faces, it looks like. So if I select this face and these two, we can bridge these two by going to Control E, or the Edges menu, and right here, Bridge Edge Loops. And there we go. Okay, so we've got the basic outline of this piece right here. It looks to me like it's a little bit too wide. Maybe I'll S and Y, bring that in a bit. This part down here, it looks like it's probably thinner. So let's see what we can do here. What I could maybe do is just bring these in a bit here. Let's try this. I'll press S and Y and just bring these in a bit. Just a little bit. And then we could probably grab these and bring these in a bit. There we go, something like that. Okay. Now we've got this cover piece over it. I'm probably not going to worry about that. I'm just going to change the materials. So I'm not going to do too much regarding that. What I could do, I guess, is kind of bulge it out a bit. So what if I selected everything? Let me hit A, and then I'm going to, let's see if this works. I'm going to hit C and middle mouse button, click and drag. Yeah, it's working now. It wasn't working before. And if I hit the C for circle select, I can middle mouse drag and deselect some of these. And also I'll deselect some of these in here. And what I want to do is just extrude this out, just kind of puff it out just a bit. See if it works. I guess I don't need this here. Let me deselect this. I'm kind of thinking I could actually draw a line here. Well, let's try it. I'm gonna do something a little strange here. I kind of like this piece right here, that kind of angled part. And I see here if I draw an edge right here on either side, then I can have that similar kind of thing. And to do that, I'll use the knife tool. I'll just hit the K key on the keyboard and just draw and click and hit enter, and that'll draw that edge right across there. And I'll do the same thing over on the other side right here. Hit the K key, click, and then click right here and hit enter. So now I've got those edges. All right, so now I need to go back and reselect everything. That should have done that before, but that's okay. I will middle mouse button click and drag along here to deselect all of this. Same down here. I'm going to deselect this, deselect all of this, and all of this. Okay, so I've deselected everything I don't want to puff out. Oh, I want to deselect these down here. Okay. And so now what let's do is go ahead and just hit E and extrude this. So I'll hit E and enter. And then with this still selected, I'm going to kind of puff this out a bit. And you can come down to the shrink fatten tool right down here. The shortcut key is Alt-S, so I'll just do that, Alt-S. And then I'm just going to drag the mouse out just a little bit to kind of puff that out some. Oh, I kind of want it a little bit more there. Let's do that, Alt-S, a little bit more. You know, let me undo this real quick. And if I then applied the scale, Control A and scale, that might puff out a little bit easier. Let's try that. Yeah, see, it puffs out a little bit more evenly when I apply the scale. Okay, so there we go. We've got that puffed out a bit. I also feel like I want to get some little piece down here. Yeah, let's do that real quick. I just want to grab these faces here, and I'd like to just extrude them out. Let's do that, and then I want to scale them in some, like that. There we go. Just a little bit. Okay. Now what I'd like to do is apply a subdivision surface modifier to this to see how it smooths out, because I think what I'd like to do is use that subdivision surface modifier to get these kind of rounded curves and then apply the modifier to it. Let's see. I know that sounds kind of strange, and it may be. Actually, before I do that, let me deal with this cylinder. We could actually extend this squared object out into a circular object. Let's work on this real quick. Let me take these edges and kind of slide that up by hitting the G key twice. Now what I'm going to do is I want to insert a cylinder into here. You can see how it's kind of connected there, right? So I want to insert a cylinder into this to get that smooth transition between the squared part and the cylindrical part. So to do that, what I need to do is create a cylinder with the same number of sides. And you can see here we've got 8 sides on my 4 faces that I've selected. So what I'm going to do is let's move the cursor to the selected. And now I want to create a cylinder. So I'll press Shift A, Mesh, Cylinder. And I only want 8 sides. And, oops, that's 3. Let's try 8. There we go. And I do not want any cap fill at all. There we go. All right, so now let's scale it down and kind of put it in place here. So now this is what I'm going to connect to those 4 faces that I selected earlier. Let me go to the front view here and just tilt that down a bit. Yeah, let me scale it down, turn it a bit, and kind of put it in place right. It looks like it's right in there somewhere. So I'll do that. All right. So now what we can do is connect these up. So let's make them the same object. I'll select this, shift select the pump, press Control J. Now they're all one object, and if I tab into edit mode, now you can see they're all one object. Let me move this a bit, like this. I'll grab these and move these. I'm just kind of moving these around to get them in place. Okay, so now what we can do is go ahead and delete these 4 faces here, and then bridge edge loops to connect all of these up. So if I press Alt and click this edge, that'll select all of that. Alt Shift and click that edge, it'll select all of that. Now once again we can press Control E and go to that bridge edge loops. And there we go. Alright, so now we have that cylindrical object connected to the squarish object, and we'll use that to then extend that pump out. All right, so now what let's do is go ahead and try our subdivision surface modifier. All right, so let's come over here to the modifiers panel, add modifier subdivision surface, and then let's increase our views up to 2. Let's come over here to object and we'll click on shade smooth. Let's see if we can add some edge loops to this to kind of clean this up. I'm going to press Control R and just drag this over here, and you can see how it kind of cleans up those edges. Control R here. What else? We could maybe insert an edge loop around this whole rim to kind of tighten that up a bit. Yeah, that helps there. We've got that point on the top. Let's see if we can add something here. I'm not sure if we've got anything that we could do there. Well, that helps. Yeah. All right. Let's see if we can add anything in here to clean these up. Maybe I'll add an edge loop here and add an edge loop over here. Yeah, that kind of tightens that up a bit. Let's work on the cylinders up here. It looks like this is kind of a half sphere. We'll deal with that here in just a minute. Let's go ahead and work on that chrome part there. I think what I want to do is just bring the cursor right into here with Shift S, cursor to selected, and then I'm going to create a cylinder right in here. So Shift A, cylinder, I'll go ahead and give it 16 sides. Let's try that. And let's then put it in place here. Scale it down, turn it. Let's get this in place. I'm going to lasso select these points down there with Control left click, and then let's switch to local view, and then I can drag that straight up in line with the actual object there. All right, it looks like these are a little bit out of alignment, and that's fine. Now I just need to kind of worry about getting this in place here. I think I will probably now go ahead and turn off that image behind there, and that's this empty here. So I can just turn this off here. Now I can look at the image over here and work on it from here. All right, so now what let's do is I will go ahead and grab this edge and I'll hit E and I'll extrude in to connect that up. And then let's go ahead and just begin extruding this up. So let's select this edge now, and I will extrude and then scale in a bit like so, and then I'm going to extrude one more here, scale in a bit more, extrude and pull that up, and then I'll extrude and scale in. And now let's just create this bend. This bend here, I could use a path, but you know what? I think I'll just go with extruding here. I can do this kind of by hand. Extrude, rotate, extrude, extrude, rotate. And I'll just go straight out like this. There we go. Let's try that. That may be a little bit too much. Let me bring it back. Control and left click and then move this. Control left click. Maybe I'll rotate it a bit and move that back. So you can just kind of adjust that as needed. All right. So there we go. Now we've got those pieces. Let's get this final piece, that kind of a partial sphere actually. Let's go ahead and do that. From here with the cursor there, I'll go ahead and press Shift A and bring in a UV sphere. And let's take this down to, I don't know, 16 again. And yeah, I think that'll be fine. Let's move it up some so we can deal with this. I will go to wireframe, tab into edit mode, go to face mode with the 3 key. And let's just hit the B key and let's get rid of these down here. And maybe let's get rid of these up here, like this. There we go. And then what we could do is just select that whole thing. Let's move the cursor or the origin into the geometry. And then let's just hit the Z key and flatten it up some, like this. Okay. Now let's put that in here. And maybe I'll go to the scale tool here and just click and drag a little bit like this. Scale it down a bit. Yeah, something like that. All right. Now we could take that inner edge right in here and we could go ahead and extrude that in like that so it connects up with it. And then we could also take this whole thing and add a solidify modifier to it. So let's do that. I'm going to press Control A and apply the scale first, and then I'll go to Add Modifier, Solidify, and let's click on Even Thickness, and then I'll just click and drag here, and that'll give us a little bit of thickness in there like that. Okay. So now let's smooth it. And let's smooth this whole thing as well and see how that works. All right, so now let's work on this thing. We still haven't dealt with this thing, and that really just looks like, oh, it looks like it's going to be a cube. I really don't need to deal with all of this stuff in here, all of that little, gadgetry in there. I don't need to deal with that. I just really need to deal with this part. And for that, maybe I'll bring back that empty, and let's just work on it here. So I'll click and just put the cursor right there, and let's bring in a cube, and I'll scale it down. Yeah, let me scale it in the Y. I'm going to go back to global mode here, and then I'll just press S and Y and scale it in the Y a bit, like that. All right, and then let's just grab that face there, hit the 3 key, let's go back to wireframe, grab that one face there. I'll press S and Z and kind of scale that in. Oh, let me grab that one face. Here we go, S and Z. Let's put it in place, and now let's just extrude. I'll go like this, and let's turn it a bit. Scale it in some. Okay, let's hit E. Turn it a bit, scale it in. E again, hit G. Turn it some more, scale it in some more, and now let's just hit E and G and bring it all the way down into here. We could also, I suppose, go back in here and select this one face, and just to get that basic shape there, we could maybe move this out like this, grab these points and just bring them down like this, and that probably will be fine. That's all we need. There we go. I'll grab all of these points here, and let's go ahead and apply the scale again. Now we come back here and let's press Control B, and let's try this. I'll bring these out a bit, and then let's increase the number of segments. Yeah, that's fine. That's all we need. I feel like we could use a little bit of an extrusion out right there. Let's see if there's anything in here that we could use. We could grab these. We could grab that stuff, and let's just see what happens. Right, all of this, and then let's just hit E, and now I'm going to scale out in the Y, S and Y, just a little bit. See what happens there. Yeah, I don't really, I'm kind of working on this just to try and get something that hints at that, and I don't really like that. So I'm going to undo it. Don't really like that. Maybe if I go like this, let's try that. I'm just, as I said, I'm just trying to hint at it. Let's try this. E, now S and Y. Yeah, I mean, why not? It's kind of in there. It'll be inside there. It'll be in there. I think that'll be fine. The next thing we need to deal with is the actual connection going to the pipe. But before we do that, I really want to put it into the gas pump itself. So what we need to do is combine these together. And the problem that we're going to have is that this has a subdivision surface modifier on it, and this does not, and neither does this here. So we can't really combine them together into all one object, at least at this point in time. Now, what I could do is I could apply this. Actually, let me go take the views down to 1 here, and that's not too bad. So I think I'll just go ahead and apply this here. I'm gonna use the views at 1, and I'm just gonna click apply. So if we tab into edit mode, that's the resolution we get. It's a little high poly, but I think I'm going to go with it. So what we can do now is take all of these objects here, and then select this and add it to there. So now that's all one object. And we'll call this pump handle. Why not? And then let's see if we can smooth it a little bit better. We've got shade smooth on here, object shade smooth. I'll go ahead and turn that on so we have it for all of the object there. And then what we can do is come over here to the object data panel right down here, right here. And then we can go to the normals section and turn on auto smooth. If I drag the auto smooth all the way down, drag that field all the way down, that's what it looks like unsmoothed. So now what let's do is drag this up and see where it looks the best. So we've got some smoothing happening there. If we go up over 90 degrees, we get that. I'm looking at this area right up here. So as I go over 90 degrees, you can see what it does there. And I don't think I want it to do that. I just want it to be there. So just below 90 degrees looks pretty good to me there. All right, so let's bring back the gas pump collection right here. And let's now put this in there. So I will spin it around. Let's push R and Z and try 90. Yep, there we go. And then let's go to the side view maybe. And I'll move this and scale it down quite a bit. Let's try and get this in here. All right, so let's see how that works. Is that too big? It feels like it may be a little bit too big in there. Let me scale it down just a little bit. Now what let's do is work on that tubing coming from the top and down to the handle. I think I'm going to need some new reference images here for this. So let's come back over here and go to Open, Image Open, and let's find a couple of new reference images. I think maybe this one may be the best one for looking at the things on the top here. If we zoom way in, this area right up here, I want to create this piece, kind of that coupling, and of course the hose, and then these pieces here. I kind of like that. For the connection to the handle though, I think I'm going to need another one. Let's open up a new window here, go to Image Editor and Image Open, and let's find one here. I think this one here. Let's take a look at this. This is very simple. Let me press Control Spacebar here. This right here is just a very simple connection. The one that I'm using from the other image has a hinge on it, and I don't need to be that detailed. This will do just fine, I think. I don't need much more than this. Yeah. So I'll use this for the connection to the handle itself. All right, so now we have these in place. Let's now, let me zoom up here we go. Yeah, we're going to need that. All right, so let's begin up here. I'll just select this and tab into edit mode, select a face, and let's move the cursor to the selected there so that when we create a new object, which is going to be a cylinder, let's just press Shift A and cylinder. 32 vertices is what we have currently. Let's take this down to 16 and let's have no triangle fan here at all, or no cap fill I should say. And then we can turn it RX90 and let's scale it down and let's kind of put it in place here. It looks like it's fairly close to one side, so let's do that. And it also looks like it's tilted a bit. RX, and I'll just kind of tilt it some. Let's try and figure out if it's in line. Let me go to the side view and go to wireframe. And let me try and just line it up like that. Okay. That looks pretty good. Let's go back to solid view. All right, so that doesn't look too bad. Maybe it's a little bit big. Let's bring that in like that. I'm also going to change from global to local transformation just so I can move it in and out in line with the object here. And so if we have that, Once again, it's hard to tell really what's going on here, but let's give it a try. Alt-click that edge, and then let's just hit E and scale in. And then I'll hit E and pull out here just a bit. And let's hit E and scale back out. And I'm just getting that edge right in there, that opening between two pieces right there. And yeah, let's go ahead and keep going. Let's hit E and extrude. And then I'll hit E and scale in. And then here we go. We can now come out like this. And maybe I'll just go like this. Okay, so that is kind of where the tubing is going to come out of. Maybe I'll go ahead and smooth this. Let's go ahead and work on that. Shade smooth. Of course, that's ugly. Let's come over here to our normals section here, and let's click auto smooth. Hey, that actually doesn't look too bad at 30 degrees, but let's go and take it up a little bit more. So yeah, just under 90 degrees is where it should be. Okay, now let's work on the hose. Oh, actually no, let me work on the piece down here. Let's do this first. So let me zoom in here with the period key, and what I want to do is right down here. Well, I'll just kind of zoom in here, and I'll move the cursor to this, cursor to selected, and then let's go ahead and create another cylinder here, and I just want to create this type of piece. So I want to create that small piece and then this coupling here that connects direct to the hose. So Shift A, cylinder. This is still 16 with no cap fills. That's fine. So let's scale it down quite a bit. Yeah, I think it needs to be a little bit smaller here still, like this. And then let me scale in the Z. I'll select that edge right there. And then let's go ahead and hit E, scale in, extrude, pull down, extrude, and I'm going to scale out a little bit farther this time like that. And then let's scale down, or excuse me, extrude down again, about like this, and hit E and scale in like that. Okay, so now we've got that piece. Once again, let's smooth it. And I'll choose auto smooth, and let's drag it up till about there. Yeah, around 85 or so is fine. Okay, so now what I want to do is connect these two. So to do that, I'm going to use a path. I'm going to come up here, and let's begin on the top. I'm going to bring the cursor to this point right here. There we go. And I'll go to the side view, and let's go to wireframe. And now let's go ahead and create a path. Shift A, curve, and a path right there. So if I tumble around, you can see it's here going this way. We don't want that, so let's press RZ90 like this. Then we can turn it like this. I'll scale it down a bit. And let's begin putting it in place. So I'm just going to put it right kind of in the center here, like this. And then if I tab into edit mode, you can see we've got these edit points that we can use to move things around. So let's just take this and see what, let's just take this and bring it down. I'm going to kind of stretch it out here a bit, and maybe grab this one and let's move it up so it kind of comes straight out and then begins to curve. And then once I've got this down here now, let's go ahead and begin extruding off of this point. So I'll hit E and extrude off of this point. And then let's curve it around like this. Just going to curve around like that and hit E and bring it right back up into that connecting point right there. All right, so let's see how we did. We should probably go to the front view, and let's maybe move it around a bit up in the front view too. So let me grab these points, and I just want to kind of move them around a bit just so it isn't quite so uniform, you know, straight up and down like that. Let's take these like this. There we go. And maybe move that out a bit. So just so it isn't quite so perfect. We don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and take this and add this to this object with Control J. And then I'm going to rotate it a bit. just to get it straight up and down. All right, so now I can move this into place like this. There we go. All right, so now we've got this. It's looking pretty good. I kind of want to do a little bit more here. Let me grab these, go back to global. I kind of want to move these in just a bit like this. All right, so there we go. So there we have our tubing. Let's go ahead now and go back to solid view. And what I want to do now is turn this into a tube, turn this path into a tube. So to do that, we're going to need to come over here to the path panel. It's already chosen here. Let me pull these up so we have a little more room to see this. All right, so now in this path panel, or the object data panel for the path, we should change the fill mode from half to full. We should come down to the geometry area here, and we could, in the bevel section, we could click and drag on the depth, and you can see it's creating that tube there. So how thick, how big do we want this here? Let's come up here, and if we click and drag, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, you can click it and drag it about like this. Now it's pretty squarish. We need to increase the resolution of our tube here. So if we click and drag on the resolution, we can increase that so it gets a little bit more rounded. So we've got it up to 3 here. We could take it up to 4 if we want. Now I'll click and drag on the depth again, and yeah, I think that's looking pretty good there. Let's go take a look at it down at the handle. See how this looks. Yeah, that's not too bad actually. We may be able to connect it a little bit better if I tab back into edit mode. Maybe we could move it around a bit. Let's move it this way. Go back to the front. Yeah, we kind of need to take this point here and move it around a bit. Let me just kind of tilt it a bit. There we go. And then move it this way. Yeah, so we just need to fit it into that housing, into that coupling a little better. If we wanted to, we could add an extra point. So if we selected this point and then shift selected this point, we could add an extra vertex here between those two by pressing the W key for the specials menu here, or excuse me, they're calling it the curve context menu now. Excuse me. It's very, very fancy name now. And click subdivide. Now we've got this extra point that we can move around a bit right here between those 2 points to kind of line it up a little bit better. There we go. So now what we should do, I think, is make these pieces right up in here. I'm going to go ahead and close this window here by joining this area there. And now we want this. So how do we create this? Well, we could use the geometry of the curve itself, of the tubing itself, to then extrude or duplicate off to create these. However, if I tab into edit mode, you can see we're still in the path mode. We still have these points and not geometry. So we need to convert the curve to geometry. Before I do that, I want to come up here and this resolution preview U. Let me go to wireframe and see if we can see this. Yeah, so we can kind of see what the resolution is in wireframe here. So if I click and drag on this preview U, we can reduce that, but it then becomes kind of jagged. I could probably reduce it to 10. Let's try that. Yeah, we could probably do that. And then let's also see if we could reduce it a bit in the resolution here. Can we do that? Can we turn it down to 3, let's say? I think that still looks okay. I think that'll still be all right. I do want to bring this down some. I think this is still a little bit too far out. Let me just do that real quick before we do anything. Before we convert it to geometry, let me make sure I've done everything I want to do in terms of just placement here. Let me come up to here, see what we're doing here. Yeah, so it kind of looks like I need a new point between these two still. So let me select these two, hit the W key and click subdivide. And now I've got this point that I could kind of bring up like this. All right, so now that I have that, let's go ahead and convert this to geometry. To do that, we can go over to the Object menu and go to Convert To, and we want to convert to a mesh from a curve. So we click this. Now if we tab into Edit Mode, we can see the geometry here. To create this piece, I think I'm just going to select a few of the face loops on the hose here, and I'll just press Control plus and expand that selection out. I don't know, to about 6 of those, maybe something like that. And then I'm just going to hit E and press Enter. And so now we have those extruded. I'll then press Alt-S to turn on that Shrink Fatten tool and just drag the mouse out just a bit like this. So maybe I can just select one of these face loops by Alt-clicking between two of the faces, and then I'll hit Extrude again. Let's do that. And then Alt-S again and kind of expand that one out there like that. We've got these on either side of it. Although, you know what? Maybe I'll go ahead and add an edge loop right here. And then let's maybe take this in. So I'll Alt-click here, hit E, and for this, once again, I'll hit Alt-S, and maybe I'll shrink that in some like that. Okay. And then up here, looks like we've got another one that needs an edge loop, say right in, well, let's put it right here. And then we'll select this face loop and extrude, enter, Alt-S, push in just a bit like that. Okay, and then I think I'd like to bring one of these out just a bit. I'm going to go ahead and add another one here. I know it isn't that way in the image, but we can have some artistic leeway here. I'm going to put this in like that, and then I'm going to take these and let's Alt-S this and see if we can, there we go, bring that out just a little bit more. I'm just giving a few more little details than we're seeing here, just because I want to, for no other reason. And then maybe what I'll do, I don't know, I kind of feel like doing this. As I said, artistic leeway, right? Let's do Alt-click here and here. And so this one, I'm going to go ahead and press Alt-S and pull this out as well. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, see, I kind of like that, actually. So, yeah. So what we'll do is we'll, of course, add new materials to this in the materials stage, actually coming up pretty soon. And we'll make these metal and plastic or whatever that is. So we'll add some interest to that, hopefully, with our materials. Okay, so we've got that. The next thing I'd like to do is take some of this here and put it on the other side, because when I created this part, I didn't do it on the other side. I should have mirrored that over, but we can do that now. Let's go ahead, and here I'm going to press Control R, and then I'm just going to hit Enter 2 times to ensure that that edge loop is as close to the center of that object as I can get it. And then what I think I'll do is come over here, and let's now switch to face mode, and let's border select this and get rid of this side. Let's try this and see if it's going to work. And then yeah, it looks like the center of that object was a little bit, yeah, right on that z-axis. So what I should do then is border select this here. And let's see if I can move this. Yeah, what I can do is just in the Y here, type in 0, and that will pop it along that z-axis. And that should give us a good mirror. So with this origin still here, I will go ahead and hit Control A and apply the scale, and then I'll come over to the modifiers panel, and let's go ahead and add a mirror modifier, and let's do it instead of the X, let's do it in the Y, and we'll turn on clipping here, and now let's see what we have here. Yeah, so now we have those things on both sides of the object. So now I just need to take these things here and duplicate and move them over to the other side. So maybe I will go to the top view for that. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like I could just press Shift D and Y and move these over to here like this. We're also going to need to mirror this whole thing over to the other side, aren't we? So the hose, these connection pieces, the handle, all of this needs to also come over to the other side, but not just to the other side over here, right? So we need to mirror it across two different axes. So what I want to do is let's just test this first. I think I'm going to take this, and with that cursor in the center of the grid, let's just make sure with Shift S, cursor to world origin. I'm going to take this and I'm going to move the origin to the 3D cursor. So the origin of this object is now down here. Then what I'm going to do, making sure I've got no rotation or scale here, I'm going to go ahead and mirror that over. So let's try it. Let's press Control M, and then, before I do that, actually, let me duplicate it. Shift D, Enter. Okay, now we're dealing with a new object. So now Control M, and I'm going to press the X key, X, and there it is there. Okay, so it's mirrored around the center of the grid around the X. Hit Enter. Okay, that's good. Now let's do it across the Y. Control M, Y, Enter. All right, so let's go ahead and do that now that we've kind of tested that out. Let's go ahead and do that with everything else. So I'm going to select that connection, the hose, this connection, and it looks like that's everything, right? So now let's combine these all together with Control J, and then let's move that origin to the center of the grid, set origin 3D cursor. Now let's do the same thing again. Let's press Control M and X, Enter. Oh, let's undo it. One thing I forgot, duplicate. So Shift D, Enter. Now Control M and X, Enter. Now Control M, Y, Enter. And look what happened. That happened right there because take a look at the rotation. I had rotation in there, and that's what's tilting it. So I need to press Control Z, and let's go back to here. Now I've just got this extra object. So what I can do here is press Control A, rotation and scale. And now let's try it again. Control M, X, Enter. Control M, Y, Enter. And sure enough, there you go. So once again, applying that rotation and scale is pretty important when you're doing things like mirroring, beveling, even doing things like using the inset tool. Having the scale and rotation applied can really help out. All right, so we've got things on both sides now. I think the last thing I want to do is create this piece down here, this kind of curb thing. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to go to the side view. I'm going to try and figure out, I don't know how big this should be. I want it to be about maybe this tall, let's say, for the curb. Maybe a little bit more, something like that, let's say. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and create a new cube. Control A and cube. And then I'll go ahead while I'm here and get rid of this face, X, and delete faces. And then let's kind of scale it to get it into place, S and Z. And I'll go to the side view here. Let's press S and X and scale out a bit. I don't want this piece here. That's not important to me. I just want this kind of curb thing underneath the gas pump. So let's do that. Okay, so now we have this. What we need to do is give us those curves. We need to work on that. So before I do that, I'm going to apply the rotation and scale, and then I'm going to come back and select these edges all the way around, and we're going to do a little beveling to get those rounded edges. All right, so Control B. Let's pull those out some. I don't know, something like that. Let's try that. Let's increase our segments. Yeah, something like that. Okay, and then also I want this top edge to have a bevel as well. So Control B, pull out. Yeah, okay. And then let's go ahead and smooth it. So I'll come up here, Object, Shade Smooth. So there we have all the basic pieces, I think, of the gas pump. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save, and let's go over to our shading area, and let's add some materials. First of all, let me go ahead and bring in another image editor right here, and I want to open up our gas pump image here. And I'm going to use this just to select some materials is all, just to select some colors. So first of all, let's just try this thing right here. Now, I haven't gone through and named everything, and that's okay. We'll deal with cleaning up the collections here pretty soon. But for this, what let's do is let's just go ahead and add a material. We can click New here if we want and add a new material. I'll call this Curb. And I'll just take the base color here, click on the eyedropper, and let's just click here in the picture, and that'll give us a gray there to begin with. And that's all I'm going to be doing generally, is just clicking on an object with that eyedropper. Let's say this is the pump main. Let's do that. Base color, eyedropper, click here. There we go. That just adds that. I feel like it could be a little bit lighter, something like this, maybe. Let's try that. And then let's add these pieces. So what would we call these? The side panels, maybe? Let's try this. Side panels. And let's click here, eyedropper, and just find it's reflecting the environment, so it's going to be hard to find an actual color for this, but at least for now we can do that. Yeah, okay, I don't like that. I'm going to move it back here and get it something like that. There we go. Okay, so we probably need to go ahead and add materials to these pieces here, right in here, and then what I'll do is shift click this one that already has a material, and I'll press Control L, and that will allow us to link the materials right here. So that is that blue as well. This piece here that holds the handle, let's see if we can find a color that we can just assign a base material to. So let's do, what should we call this? This is, I don't know, handle rest maybe? I don't know. I don't know what to call it, so let's not worry about it. And I'll just click this right here, and that gives us that base color. What about the sign up here? Let's work on the sign real quick. So just for base colors, what let's do is, first of all, let's assign a base material here. We'll call this sign base, and we'll give it this base material right there. And then we can tab into edit mode and go to face mode and select this face and this face, and we can assign these a new material. Let's create a new material slot. New, this is sign text, and I'll just take this and give it this color here. I don't really like that. Let's give it more of a red like that, and then we'll click assign to assign the selected faces to that new material right there. Need this piece up here. Let's take a look at this. Let's select this piece. We'll call it, I have no idea what to call this. I'm going to call it top block just so I know what it is, and we can go ahead and grab a color up here. Try that. A little bit too dark. I'll take it a little bit lighter. There we go. This piece, we'll call this the, I don't know, top cap. Let's try that. Let's do that here. And I don't know if I can even, well, that's a little wrong color. I'm going to take this up like this. So we've got those, and what else? Well, we need that black piece down the bottom, don't we? Let's do that. Grab that, new. We can call this bottom, I guess, pump bottom, and we'll just grab that color. It's just pretty much a black, so that's fine. Well, let's go work on this stuff here. Let's give the hose its own material. What I should have done is waited to duplicate and mirror all this until I got all the materials on, but we can do it again, that's no problem. All right, let me select this guy right here. Oh, that's all one piece. Okay, that's all right. So let's go ahead and we'll call this hose base, and then we'll select that color, this hose color right here. That's pretty good. And then we can begin to add individual materials onto this. So let's say I select this and press Control plus and expand this out like this. Now let's add a new material slot. We'll call this hose metal. Let's try that. And base color, and let's just select a metal color and assign that like that. And then we can just go through and assign that to all this other stuff as well, except this piece. So maybe what I could do is, well, let's try this. I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to press Control plus and just expand this stuff out like so. And then let me back it up just a bit. Okay, we don't need this. Alt Shift click there. And then we don't need this or this or this. And everything else can be that metal material. So let's do that. Okay, so we've got those, and then we need this down here, right? Okay, so we got that. Let's assign that the metal. And this stuff. Okay, so this is, we need the metal on here now too, don't we? So I'm just going to Control plus until we get that all selected. And then what did we have? We had, let me change the pump handle here. Here we go. So now we can kind of see what is metal, what should be metal, and what shouldn't be. So while this is selected, I'm going to hit the division key on the numpad to isolate this, and then I'm going to tab into edit mode, and we're going to select that and then expand this selection out a bit like this. So we want it in here like this. Let me hit that C key, and let's see if we can just paint this selection here. All right, I think I've got it selected pretty well. Let's give this a try. I'm going to go ahead and assign the metal material to that. Yeah, that's okay. And then I do want that metal material in here as well. Right, I just wanted it to kind of hint at this in here. So let's assign that hose metal to that as well. There we go. So we'll just give this a general metal material, maybe with more of a texture to it, and that'll be good. That's all we really need there. I'll hit that division key again to come back. And yeah, we're going to need this stuff here as well. So I think what I'm going to do is do this all again. In fact, there we go. I'll just select all of this and delete it. And let's then mirror this over again now that it has all the materials on it. I could have just linked the material, but then I wouldn't get all of this in there. So let's just take these and let's press Control J to join everything. And then I'll go back to the Layout tab so I can see it. Let's make sure the rotation and the scale are applied. I'll press Control A and rotation and scale. Now I'll duplicate this, press Control M and X, and then press Control M and Y. And there we go. So now if we go back to the shading, all the materials are on that side as well. All right, so let's go back over here to the layout, and we can always go to the shading view here as well, like that, so we can see what we've just added. Now what we should do is adjust the specularity, the metallic, the roughness of each of the materials to get it to look more like we want it to look. So for example, this panel here, these panels on the side you can see are just more reflective here than we have on the material currently. And to do that, we're going to need something to reflect. And over here in the shading, we had that HDRI that will reflect in this image, or in this material. If we go to that material, I'll come over here, and if we increase the metallic and reduce the specular and reduce the roughness, you can see that's reflected in that material. Now if we come back over here to the layout view, you can see there it is as well. So this look dev display over here is the same thing as that shading tab. Now in addition, if we don't like this particular HDRI, the nice thing is we can come over here to shading, click on the globe here on the sphere, and we can choose other ones that are already built into Blender. So maybe since this is a gas station, we should choose this city HDRI. Now you can also, if you come over here and click on this little gear, you can also add your own in here. So we could go to cloud.blender.org and download more HDRIs and put them in here, and they'll show up here, and also they'll show up in here in this menu. So that's always an option. All right, so now that we've got the environment texture or the HDRI in the background here that we want, we can begin adjusting these materials. So if I go over to the material panel here, let me move this up, we should adjust this a little bit better. We don't need it quite this reflective, maybe something like that, and I can bring up the roughness just a bit. And so now we just need to go through for each of these materials and try and find a setting over here with the metallic, the specular, the roughness of something we like. So let's say for this handle here, see what we can do here. So this is kind of reflective in terms of the metal here. Let's maybe, since it is a metal, let's bring the metallic up, let's bring the specular down, let's bring the roughness down a bit, and we can see in here that that's a little bit too much. So I'll bring it up some, maybe something like that. Oh, we could maybe select all of these, hit 1, and then we could now drag this down to get more of a silver kind of a color like this. We could also play with the smoothing some, see if that helps any. Did we smooth this? Yeah, we did. So now we could come over here to this object data panel, and we could maybe reduce the angle under auto smooth just a bit to get rid of some of those artifacts on that. Okay, and now this hose is going to be more of a rubber, so that should probably be less specular, more rough, something like that maybe. Now what? How about this right here? Let's see what we've got here. This is more of a dull material. Is it a metal? I'm not sure. Or is it a plastic? It's probably a painted metal. So let's reduce the specular and increase the metal just a bit. Increase the roughness. We can also come up here to shading and spin this around with the rotation. We can spin it around to get the light coming from different directions. So we can do that. Let's work on this thing right here. I think I want the gray to be a little bit less specular, something like this. And then maybe I'll bring this color down a bit like this. There we go. Also, it looks like the smoothing may not be the best at this point in time. Let's turn on auto smooth, and we don't have any smoothing on that at all. That's the problem. Let's go ahead and add some smoothing there, and we'll drag this up until we get this. I just wanted this kind of curved a little bit better, a little smoother. And then these things up here. So this guy is probably going to be more metallic right here, and bring down the roughness, and then maybe bring it back up to around right here, let's say. And this guy, once again, more metallic, and bring down the rough, so it's probably around in here, let's say. Okay, So we've just got the general gist of our materials here. All right, so now that we have the materials generally in place, let's think about our textures. Let's go out to the Blender cloud and see if we can find any textures that might work for this. All right, here we are at cloud.blender.org, and we're in the libraries area. I'm going to go to textures and see what we can find. Actually, the first thing I want to look at is the concrete and see what we can find in here. What I want is just a general gray concrete here, like this, that I can put on that curb there. This one looks pretty good. This is a 4K image. It looks like it's repeatable. So let's try this. Oh, and we've got a normal map here as well. Let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to download these. Well, back in Blender, we need to do a little bit of UV mapping before we can actually put the texture on. So let's see what we can do with this. Let's go over to UV editing and go ahead and select that and zoom in. And yeah, our UV map looks kind of awful here. So let's work on creating a new one. What I'm going to do first is just try and UV map it all as one piece. Let's see how it works, because if I try and split it up with seams, we might get some unsightly seams in our textures. So I'm just going to press Control A and apply the rotation scale. And then let's just select everything and press U and unwrap. Down here in the UV unwrap window, let's switch from angle base to conformal. And that looks a little bit better. Now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and open up a new window here. And I'll change this to a shader editor. So let's do that. And we get our material in here once we do that. Now we can press Shift A and bring in an image texture. And let's connect this up from color to base color. And I'll go ahead and click Open, and let's go find that texture. So here it is. Here's the color map. Let's open that up. And down here in the UV editor, I'll go ahead and open that up here. So there is our UV map over the texture. Let's see how that works. I'll come over here and switch over to the Look Dev display, and we can see it here. So it isn't looking great. Let's see if we can scale this up and repeat this a couple times. So I'll press S and let's just scale it up a bit like this. What I'd like to do is adjust the color. I'm going to come over here and just create a new window right here, and let's go back to an image editor and bring in one of these images. So let's bring in this one. That's the one. So I want the texture to be a little bit, darker. So what I can do is bring in a color node or a RGB curves node and just drop that right in there. And then what I could do is just take this, add a point, and then just move it around until I get the shade that I'm looking for. So there we go. So that just helps me adjust the color here in Blender rather than having to do this in Krita or GIMP or Photoshop or whatever. Let's now think about this piece here. What I want to do is go ahead and UV map this and this. So let's come in here and tab into edit mode and then go to face mode, and I'll select this and this. So these two faces I want to UV map. Let me get rid of this image for now. And there is our UV islands. Let's once again press Control A and apply the rotation and scale. And then let's tab into edit mode. And all I'm going to do is just UV map these faces here. Now I could do the other side as well, but I may just split this again, delete half, and mirror it over again to get those in place. So I think that's all I'll do. So I'll hit U and unwrap, and there we go. Now what let's do is get these islands arranged here. So I'm going to go to Island Select and just click and drag these around. I'll rotate this like this. Actually, I should just do R90 and that will rotate it 90 degrees. Now I need an image. So what let's do is let's go ahead and bring in an image. I'm going to press Shift A, and what I've got, I haven't done any editing on this, so it may be a little bit strange here, but let's give this a try. I'm going to go to the color here, attach the color base, and I'm going to press open, and I'm going to go get one of my reference images. I think right here. Let's try this one. Now, this may be a little bit strange. I like that. That's nice there. Okay. What I should do is create a new material for this, shouldn't I? So let's do that real quick because it's being applied to the whole object and I don't want that. So I'm going to go over here to materials and let's create a new material. I'll call this textures. There we go. And so instead of having this material have the texture, I'll delete that. I want this material to have the texture, and I'll assign these faces to that. So with those selected, I'll just click Assign. Now let's bring in that texture again. Right here, an image texture. I'll pull down the menu, and here it is, I believe, right? Let's try this. So there we go. Yeah, now they're there in just those faces. So what let's do is tab into edit mode, and I'm going to bring that image into here, and let's see if we can arrange our UV islands over the areas that we want to be mapped. Let's see how this works. Alright, so I'm going to zoom out a bit here. Let's give this a try. Actually, I'll press Control Spacebar, and let's see how this works. So I'm going to bring this over here, and I will just do this with the points themselves. So I'm just going to select the vertices and just drag them to right where I want them to be. We got that one, and this is a bit skewed. I'm curious how this is going to work. Let me select this UV island, so and move this over here. Let's give this a try. I'm going to select this and move it to here. Select this one, move it to here. Select this one, move it to here. Alright, let's give this a try. Control Space. Okay, and tab back into object mode. Okay, so there are a couple things wrong here. One, this is upside down. So let's select this island right here, and I'm going to press R90. Nope, I'm going to press R180. There we go. Spin that around, and then I'm going to come back to it and move each of the points to the edge of where I want it to be, right here and right here. And I'll move this here and here, like that. Okay, now let's try that. Alright, so I think we're doing pretty well. So now what let's do, let me close this up just a bit, and then for here what I'm going to do is take this color of this object right here, of this material, grab the eyedropper, and eyedrop this. Now the last thing I think I want to do is just add some text here to this sign, and I'll do that in just the same way we did before. With the gas pump, I'll just tab into edit mode and select that one face, and I'll go ahead and add an image to that. So I've got an image. I just created a quick image, and I'll bring in an image texture node and connect it up, and then I'll click on open and I'll go find that image, and here it is. And then I'll go ahead and add it in here. The now hiring ridiculously awesome people, and I've just made it a little dirty there. So now what I'll do is make sure that the rotation and scale are applied. Control A, rotation and scale. Select that face, hit U and unwrap, and there we go. I better change it to island select. So now select that and press R90. And there we go. Now we can move this into place and try and get it so it looks good in the 3D view. So let's say, I don't know, what do you think? Something like that. And then what I want to do is just render this out real quick. So let's go back to the Layout tab, and I'm just going to create a camera real quick here. Let's change it to local view, and I'm just going to pull this out like this. And let's then create a new window up here. I will hit the 0 key on the numpad to frame up just, or to view through just the camera. And then let's try and get this camera in place here. All right, so that's the way I want the render to be. So let's go over to the Eevee renderer right here, and we can see that there isn't anything going on here. What we need to do is add an HDRI image in the Eevee viewport, just like we did in the look dev. So to do that, what we can do is come over here to the World tab and click on Use Nodes, and then under the color, I'll click here and choose Environment Texture, and that will then create this ugly pink thing that's just telling us we don't have a texture in there yet. And I'll click Open, and I'll go find one of those HDRIs. Now I've got one here we could use. Let me try this. Now what I think I'd like to do is maybe add another light in here, just one more light, or maybe two. I'll press Shift A and add an area light, and I'll bring this up, and let's move it out here. I'll press RX to rotate that. Maybe I'll move it right about here and try that, because I'd like that shadow to come down along the front here. So now let's just render this out and see how it looks. But before I do, I'm going to come back to the Scene tab here and go down to Film, and let's turn on Transparent. Instead of the Alpha Sky, let's use Transparent. And that should, when we hit F12 right here, make it so that the background is transparent. There we go. So let's try this. That's not too bad, but I don't think I like that angle. All right, I've moved the camera just a little bit to try again. I'm just going to hit that F12 key again. Yeah, I think that'll work. I think that's going to be just fine in the scene from a distance. We're never going to be real close, and I think those textures just give it enough detail to sell that it's an actual realistic thing. All right, well, thanks for joining me on this Let's Create with Blender 2.8 episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you again next time. Well, take care.